President Trump showing his concern about anti-conservative bias from Google in the 2020 election. President Trump today tweeted Google's CEO recently assured him that Google was not involved with China's military and did not help Hillary Clinton in 2016. But after hearing from former Google engineer Kevin Cernicki in our conversation with the Government Accountability Institute's Peter Schweizer here last night, President Trump tweeted this: "We are watching Google very closely." Well, joining us tonight is Sebastian Gorka, host of Salem Radio's America First, best-selling author, former strategist to President Trump. Seb, great to have you here. Let's start with Google and the game that it is playing. Your thoughts about whether or not the CEO of Google is to be believed?
Lou, if you believe the CEO of Google, I have a bridge to sell you in Connecticut. Google, whose motto used to be "do no evil," has become the facilitator of evil regimes. Not only do they censor, deplatform, deploy algorithms against conservatives on YouTube that they own and elsewhere. Not only do they mess with search results on the most powerful search engine in the world, they are working hand in glove with the communist dictatorship in Beijing. The idea that one of the most powerful American companies in the world is maintaining a communist regime in China is absolutely outrageous and appalling.
Legendary investor Peter Thiel saying clearly that they have divided loyalties at best, yes. Frankly. The idea that they would work with the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China against the interest of the United States and not work with our military at all suggests that Google has made at least an internal and externally obvious decision to be a problem and a challenge to the United States.
These aren't businessmen in the classic sense of the word, Lou. These are people who live in the hotbed of left-wing politics that is Palo Alto, that is Silicon Valley. These are the people who worship at the altar of political identity, who thought Barack Obama was good for America. They share the ideals of the left, whereby we, America, are seen as the problem. If they can support a company, a policy, or a nation that is against U.S. interests, they will most likely choose to do so. And when they're given the option to help our national security, to support our troops, they're not interested. It is absolutely despicable, Lou.
Let's turn to President Obama emerging for the purpose of attacking President Trump. It's unseemly. It is not in the tradition of U.S. presidents to do so. And to have his former intelligence chiefs implicated in the effort to overthrow this president. Your thoughts about what is going on and why in the world it isn't clear to all that the Dems are in deep, deep trouble because they are relying on the same old the same old games that they played so futilely in 2016.
There's a very toxic and a very dangerous cocktail brewing on the left amongst the Democrats. If you look at Peter Strzok starting to sue the FBI and the DOJ for unfair dismissal, a seditious part of Obama's attempt to undermine not only the Trump campaign, but the Trump presidency, we have a cocktail of arrogance mixed with low IQs. These are dangerous people. They thought they could get away with it. They didn't cover up their tracks. Robert Mueller was meant to hide it all, to hide the seditious crimes of the Obama administration.
So where are we?
James,
we have a new attorney general. We have a new attorney general, a new leadership in the Justice Department. And if you can call Christopher Wray at least a Trump appointee as the director of the FBI, decisions not to prosecute James Comey. It looks like a very hard path to bring to accountability these officials who have done so much against the interest of the nation.
I had Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch on my show today, Lou. Chris Farrell is not a person given to hyperbole. And he said that knowing his sources and what they've already uncovered and the reputation of U.S. Attorney Durham, there will be people at high levels in the Obama administration who will be charged with very serious felonies to do with their seditious activity. However, you have to note, a good prosecutor does not go after the low-hanging fruit. They put pressure on those who are most legally vulnerable. In this case, it's going to be Lisa Page. It's going to be Bruce Orr, whose wife is implicated. And when they have the thumb screws turned on them legally, they will give up what the Obama administration was doing in a silent coup against Donald Trump. So I know it's tough. We've got to wait a little bit and be a little patient.
Yeah, I would like to see patience at any point in this pay off. The only, I have to say, the Mueller hearing was worthwhile, and so was the Mueller report. But after that, I want to see some hard prosecutions, successful prosecutions.
So do I.
Sebastian Gorka, great to see you, my friend. Thank you.